So you're wondering what the best camera is for live streaming, right? Well, you came to the right place. In today's video, we are going to be going over the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, followed by the iPhone 13 Pro Max, followed by the GoPro Hero 11, all to see which performs better in multiple different scenarios. We are going to be doing dusk, day, and dark, along with a movement test to test stabilization, and we're gonna see what this would exactly look like on stream. Now, I will say this method that I use to record all these cameras is exactly what people would see on my live stream, so you get the most accurate results. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, before we start here, I do want to mention that this review isn't going to be anything advanced. We're not going to be talking crazy specs, but we will just be taking a look at them for the face value and go over a couple different things, and there'll be a conclusion with the pros and cons at the end of the video. The first part before we go into testing the cameras are the price points of each of them. And first up, we have the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra coming in at a whopping price of $1,200, which is a very large investment. However, you can use this for your own personal reasons because, well, it's a phone. Followed by that, we have the iPhone 13 Pro Max, which is coming in at also a price point of $1,200, which to me is kind of weird because this isn't the latest iPhone, but it still works relatively fine. And again, it is a phone which you can use for personal reasons. Next up, we have the GoPro Hero 11 Black. This little camera right here is coming in at a price point of $400, a lot more affordable, but to me, I bought it for live streaming and I didn't really like it because of the quality. But then again, you guys let me know when you watch the video and the comparisons that we're going to get into next.
Okay, so we are outside here out in the wilderness, and it's snowing, it's pretty windy, and so we are going to compare these cameras. Like, the cameras I got side by side as best as I can, and that's about it. I mean, I don't have the best mounting things for it, and that's just the way it's going to be. But we have three cameras here. We got the GoPro Hero 11 Black, we have the Samsung S23 Ultra, and then we have the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Now, the difference between these cameras here again is all up to you. The GoPro is on the wide view. The GoPro has three different options: linear, wide, and super wide, and we currently have it on the wide view, so you can obviously see a bit of the different lenses. Now, the Android phone is on 68 degrees wide view front lens, and the iPhone here is on the just the front camera. The GoPro Hero 11 Black has a 60 FPS live streaming rate, and the S23 Ultra can only live stream in 30 FPS, and that is on both front and rear, and the iPhone 13 Pro Max can do 60 FPS as well. Now, to me, based off of what I've checked so far, I don't know about the GoPro, but I know between the two phones here, the iPhone tends to have a bit more cooler colors compared to the S23 Ultra. Both of these phones have a bit of different options here, and that has to deal with the zoom. The S23 Ultra has 4 different cameras here that you can choose. You got a 68 degree and a 59 degree front facing camera, and you have a 75 and a 103 degree, which would be your ultra wide, on the rear facing camera. The iPhone over here has a couple different options for cameras as well, but the front facing camera, at least in my experience, isn't anything super crazy in terms of multiple cameras, but you can indeed zoom in. Now, I will say the zoom in on the iPhone here is a whole lot better than the anything else. The GoPro is also, you can't zoom in at all, but we take a look at the iPhone here, and if I press this button right here, boom, as you can see, look at this beard. It's pretty nasty. But as you can see, it zooms in nice and smooth, and that has to deal with the app called Moblin, which is currently being used for live streaming the iPhone 13 Pro Max. And the Android phone, you can zoom in, but it's like, I can zoom in for you here. It's kind of weird on how you have to do it. There's like a little slider, and when you slide it, as you can see, it's not really very smooth. It's not as nice as the iPhone, but then again, that has to do with the app more so than the phone. The Android's using the IRL Pro app, and of course the iPhone is using the Moblin app, which I recommend for iPhone. Now, let's go ahead and compare the different cameras here. Now, again, we're gonna switch the S23 Ultra over to its 59-degree front-facing camera, which is this camera right here. And again, the GoPro, I'm not going to mess around with the different, field of views that I can do. But of course, obviously, the GoPro only has one camera in the front. So let's go ahead and flip these phones around here and do a comparison there as well. All right, so here you have the rear-facing ultra-wide view of the S23 Ultra and the ultra-wide view of the Apple iPhone. Again, you guys let me know what you think looks better to you. Now, I know that the Android has cameras that are way stronger than the Apple, but it's kind of weird where it only allows 30 FPS, and to me, it kind of, I don't know what cameras it's using. You also can't really choose. Now, of course, the GoPro, again, is very limited. There's not really a whole lot you can do with it. The GoPro is just one single camera. There's not like you can flip it back and forth between the cameras and whatnot. So again, the GoPro is very limited, but I will say that the GoPro has a lot better mounting options compared to both of the phones. I mean, both of the phones are absolutely ginormous. So the GoPro definitely excels a lot better in terms of mounting. I've mounted it on a side-by-side on my head, anything like that, where a phone is way heavier and just way bigger and just a hassle to deal with compared to the GoPro. So the GoPro with the mounting options is a lot better, not to mention, again, 60 FPS, so it's really good. But I have, in my opinion, compared the visuals between all the phones, and in my opinion, the GoPro kind of slacks a little bit. They are all streaming 1080p. The iPhone and the Android are streaming at 5,000 bit rate, and the GoPro is streaming at 4,500, which is not a choice. That is through the GoPro Quick app, which is the only way to live stream with the GoPro. So we're gonna switch the cameras on the Android and the iPhone now and go ahead and test the zoomed in version rather than the ultra wide, and you guys will be able to see what that is. This is both the 1x zoom on the iPhone and this is the regular zoom on the Android. Now, you won't really notice much of a difference besides the, well, field of view, but I will say that the Android typically does a little bit better with the light compared to the iPhone, at least when it starts to get dark, which again, we will do the darkness test when it starts to get a little bit dark and then when it starts to get really dark. Now we have the microphone test. Now the microphone test is gonna be something a little bit different here because, well, right now and this entire time, I've been using the Rode Wireless Go 2. So you have been able to hear me use the Rode Wireless Go 2, which is the microphone I use for IRL streaming. And it's really nice because, again, it is wireless, right? And you can wander wherever the heck you want to go, and this thing will reach a long ways. But how do the microphones compare on the GoPro, S23 Ultra, and the iPhone?
All right, now again, this is the microphone on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, which I will say, again, it's a pretty windy day out, so it's probably a little bit hard to hear me. I am speaking up a little bit so you can hear me, but again, with the iPhone and with all of these devices, if you walk too far away, it's gonna be pretty hard to understand. Now, what I will say too is that the app on the iPhone 13 Pro Max here called Moblin allows you to choose what microphone you want to use. So you have a back microphone, which is again on the back of the phone. You have a front microphone, which is of course where your screen is, and you have the bottom microphone, which is typically used when you make a phone call. And you are able to choose what microphone you want to use for the better situation. The S23 Ultra, you cannot choose what microphone you're using. You are completely stuck. And this is the microphone on the S23 Ultra. Again, you cannot choose what you want. It's just, you're stuck with it. That's what you got. You cannot choose it. I don't know if that is an app limitation or if that's a device limitation. And this is the microphone on the GoPro, which again, this doesn't have the media mod on it, so the media mod typically would have a better microphone. This is just a plain microphone, and you probably can't even hear me because of the wind. But let me know what you think in the comments below, what you think the best microphone is. Let's go ahead and show you what the iPhone microphones are, because again, the iPhone is the only one that you can actually choose what microphone you want to use. So again, this is the back microphone that's being used right now. And this is the front microphone that's being used on the iPhone. Again, I am behind it and I'm a lot closer as well. But this would kind of be like you're walking down the street IRL type setup. And this is the bottom microphone on the iPhone as well. Again, it doesn't matter where your camera is facing.
All right, so that right there is your microphones. Again, like I had mentioned earlier, let me know what you think sounds best. Now, I will say that the Android phone, when I've switched between the back camera and the front camera, I haven't noticed a very big difference in the microphone quality, so I don't actually know if it switches the microphone to front or rear or whatever other microphones there are. I'm not quite sure. To me, there wasn't any noticeable difference that I found.
All right, this is the movement test with the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra. We're just gonna go for a little walk through the woods here and switch throughout the cameras. Now we're using the audio on the S23 Ultra as well, and stabilization is on. However, I have noticed that the stabilization only really works on the rear cameras when you're walking away from from whatever. When you're walking away, it only seems to work. But on this camera here, it doesn't seem to work very well at all. So we're gonna go ahead. This is the ultra wide front camera, but even though it's not really an ultra wide camera, we'll switch to the back camera. Boom, this is the back camera now, the ultra wide on the back of the phone. As you can see, the stabilization is a whole lot better here. And because the app has built-in stabilization, we'll go ahead and switch to the non-ultra wide camera, the 75-degree camera. And there we go. This is the 75-degree rear camera right here on the S23 Ultra. This is the 59-degree on the front-facing camera as well. Again, stabilization is on, but from my experience, it doesn't affect this one, and this is just pure walking. All right, now we have the front-facing camera, and I'm just gonna run through the woods here a little bit, and again, you guys will be able to experience the stabilization and all of that. So let's go ahead and just do a little running test here. And I'm gonna try to run through the snow. It's pretty hard, but you can see that stabilization is kind of a pain, just with a very short run there. And then this is the ultra wide rear, and we're gonna go ahead and do a little run here so you can see the stabilization. Again, I'm trying to hold it as steady as I can with my own hand, but you know, even then it moves a little bit. And then this is the secondary rear camera, the 75-degree rear camera, with the run test as well. So you can kind of get an idea of how this camera works here and what it kind of looks like. All right, and this is now the movement test on the GoPro Hero 11 Black. This is connected to the hotspot on my S23 Ultra. And what's actually interesting is, because I didn't test this before, apparently the Android allows the GoPro to stream at 5,000 bitrate rather than the iPhone, which is limited at 4,500 bitrate. It's not really anything of a major difference, but I figured I would kind of throw that out there, not to mention that the Android hotspot is of course a lot more stable. But anyways, this is the walking test along with the GoPro Hero 11 Black audio. Now let's go ahead and flip the camera around, which again, this is how you have to flip it, is by turning it like that. And obviously on the selfie stick that I have here, it's not necessarily the best, and I'll hold it about a little bit away from my face here, but this is the walking view from a bit of a distance with the GoPro Hero 11 Black. And again, now if we want to go back to our face, we have to turn it around just like this. Now, like I said before, when you are streaming with the GoPro, you're gonna want to have an extra battery pack, which I have right here in my pocket with a glove to keep it nice and warm. And there's just a cable hanging out with the battery door open. But again, if you have the media mod, it's a little bit better, but it is completely up to you. This is just how I have it, just because I don't have the media mod. All right, and now we're gonna do the running test with the GoPro Hero 11 Black and see how that goes. So we're gonna go ahead and just start running here so you can kind of get an idea of what it kind of looks like with the stabilization. So there's that, and then we're gonna go ahead and flip it around here again and do a little bit of a running test holding the camera like this. So as you see, here we go. And now the GoPro's a little bit harder to hold with this tripod
as well as I gotta hold it way out in front of me if you're holding it like a selfie stick. So it's a bit of a pain, but at least you get the idea. So that is the GoPro test for you. And now it is on to the iPhone. All right, now this is the movement test with the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and this is on the front microphone along with the front camera. So again, we're just walking through the woods here, and it should be about the same as the others. Now, I do have stabilization turned on standard, which is built into Moblin. So I haven't really tested this. This is actually the first time testing it. So let me know what you think about the stabilization, because I don't know if it affects the front view. Now, I have noticed a bit of a difference between these two cameras. With the front facing is the blur around the background. You guys let me know what you think. I heard people say the Apple looks better. Heard people say the S23 looks better. You guys let me know in the comments down below. All right, and this is the back camera, the ultra wide, and we're walking through the woods with the ultra wide back camera of the the 13 Pro Max from Apple. And now we're gonna go ahead and switch on over to the 1X, which is your standard camera on the back of the iPhone 13 Pro Max. Again, you guys let me know what you think down below. Again, this is with stabilization on standard in the Moblin app. All right, now we're gonna do the running test with the iPhone 13 Pro Max, and the microphone is now set to the back of the camera now, so it's probably a little bit harder to hear me, but let's go ahead and give this a shot here. So again, just simple running a little bit with the front camera. You can kind of see there might be a bit of a difference between the S23 Ultra, because the S23 Ultra seems to be a little bit more shaky. All right, now we have the running test with the ultra wide on the 13 Pro Max on the back of the phone, and this is running with the ultra wide on the back of the iPhone 13. And this is running with the 1X on the back of the iPhone 13 Pro Max. And as you can see, it's a little bit different, and obviously I'm starting to lose my mind and it's freezing out here, but hopefully you get the idea. All right, so this is the dusk test here. It's not quite extremely dark, but this would pretty much be, you know, a little bit of a nighttime kind of walking through the streets kind of vibe here. And this is the comparison with the camera between all of them. Again, we have a nighttime comparison that we are going to do as well, but for right now, this is going to be the dusk review. Now, as you can see here, again, the GoPro and the S23 Ultra and the iPhone 13 Pro Max. And again, you guys let me know what you think. I have experienced that these cameras kind of go a little bit blue when it comes to this kind of time here, but again, you guys let me know. Now, on the S23 Ultra, we are going to switch it to the 59-degree camera. Again, this is the less field of view camera, and the iPhone here, we don't really have that option. It would just be the 2X camera, which I can turn on and zoom in, but it's not going to really do anything. In fact, it's going to make it even worse. So again, these are the front facing cameras on the phone that you would typically use walking down the street in IRL with barely any lighting. This is just, again, very dark, but I can definitely see good enough with my own eyes. But again, just comparison for dusk. Let's go ahead and flip the phones around and give those a test to see what those are like. All right, and this is the back camera test on the ultra wide of both the iPhone 13 Pro Max and the Android. Again, this is the ultra wide camera on each of them, and of course the GoPro is still on wide. If you can even see anything on the GoPro, because I don't really know. It looks pretty dark to me with that front facing camera on, or the front facing screen on the GoPro. Let's go ahead and try out the regular camera and the non-ultra wides. All right, and this here is the non-ultra wide camera. I don't know if I'm in the view or not. I don't really know. The GoPro, as you can see, is probably completely dark. You probably can't see anything with that. at all. That does have just the regular camera lens on it, stuff like that, nothing special. But again, this is the Dusk kind of pretty low light, but not completely dark out test with the iPhone 13 Pro Max, the S23 Ultra, and the GoPro. Again, you guys let me know what you think of the Dusk low light. It's a little bit past dusk now, but it's still not too bad. Again, for me, it's kind of got a little bit blue or dark, I don't know, but you tell me what you think looks better, and I will see you guys when it is time for the nighttime test.
All right, so in this following clip, again, we're going to be comparing all the other cameras like we've been doing, but for some reason, the iPhone ultra wide got really blurry and really messed up, and I have no idea why. So again, if that's something that turns you away from it, well, that's again up to you.
All right, it is currently almost 7 o'clock and it is completely dark out here. There is a light on the sidewalk here, and that is what we're doing. This is the ultimate low light test for you. Now again, let me know what you think. This is basically, I mean, again, completely dark, and there's just a bright light, which is probably about, I'd say 15 feet away from me right now. So again, this is the low light. I did want to mention too that this is also going to be flipping through the microphones on each of the different cameras here, and you let me know. Now both the Android and the iPhone here, the S23 and the iPhone 13 Pro Max, are on the ultra wide settings. The GoPro again is on the wide setting, but from my experience messing with the field of view on the GoPro didn't really change much of the low light testing at all, really, because it all uses the same thing. So for me with the GoPro, from what I've experienced, there was no visual difference between any of the FOVs that I chose. It just, you know, obviously you had super wide field of view on the GoPro, which again is pretty wide, and it doesn't look that bad during the daytime. But to me, the low light on the GoPro is a little bit worse than both the phones, but of course that's to make sense. I think you can get an attachment to make it even bigger. It's still pretty windy, so again, you get that idea of the microphones here. And yeah, so anyways, let's check out the regular non-ultra wide of the Android and the iPhone. All right, and there you go. This is the regular 1X. There's no zoom, there's no ultra wide. This is the regular camera on both the iPhone 13 Pro Max and the S23 Ultra. Now for me, when I did the testing here, they looked fairly similar, but sometimes they excel in different, you know, lighting environments. It really depends. So you let me know what you think down below. Now again, I do want to mention a couple different things here. I want to jump back to the frame rate. The S23 Ultra is locked at 30 FPS. You cannot do 60 FPS. The iPhone 13 Pro Max and the GoPro are both able to do 60 FPS live streaming if you want. Now the GoPro I think is locked. I don't think you can decrease the frame rate. I could be wrong though. But anyways, there you go. There you have it. This is the low light test. I also want to mention too that it is extremely cold out here, and I do a lot of IRL during the winter time, but I've also messed with the hot weather as well. And from my experience, the iPhone seems to have, it gets a little bit warmer than the Android, to the point that the iPhone's honestly not too bad when it comes to the cold weather, but the Android, for whatever reason, it actually ends up getting too cold, so it won't charge properly. And it's really weird, because it's like the complete opposite of the iPhone that I've experienced. Now the hot weather, I haven't had the chance to really test with the Android yet, but I did know that the iPhone would overheat over time, but it wasn't terrible, so I'm very curious to see. It seems like the Android has a little bit better cooling, regular by default, which we will see. Again, the cases that I have on them are not really anything crazy either, so it's not like the cases make a giant difference either. But the fact that the Android gets too cold and causes it to charge slower, it just seems a little bit weird. It doesn't affect the stream, but it does affect the battery life. Now, the other thing I will mention is that the battery life on the iPhone seems to, it goes down a little bit more than the Android, but it depends on what you have on the Android. Now, I've done many different streams. The iPhone I've done like a 15-hour stream with and had it constantly plugged into a battery pack, and it was fine throughout the entire 15-hour stream. And when I ended, I had maybe 20 to 30% battery remaining. The Android phone, I've done like 11 or 12 or 13-hour stream with the Android, of course, having it plugged in, and it stayed charged at 100% the entire time. But that is without having the microphone, the wireless microphone plugged into it. If you have the wireless microphone plugged into it, that battery life drops a lot, and especially depends on the weather, so I'm sure it'll overheat pretty well as well. But anyways, like I said, you guys let me know what you think down in the comments of what ones look better. We will now go ahead and try the front-facing cameras on the phone. All right, and here we have the front-facing cameras on both phones. Now, the S23 Ultra is on the ultra-wide version, which isn't really that wide, but it is on the bit of a wider version. But from my experience, what I've seen, it doesn't change anything in the image at all. It's basically the same. Now, we are using, again, the front microphone on the iPhone, and the Android, of course, we cannot choose what microphone we want to use. We just kind of, well, have to deal with it. But again, I don't know if that is a phone issue or an app issue, but the IRL Pro app is the app that all of these really big live streamers typically use if they're using an S23 Ultra. And Moblin on the iPhone is a relatively new app, but for me, it has been absolutely amazing. Not to mention, it has integration with KickChat, both on the Android and the iOS. IRL Pro on Android, Moblin on iOS has KickChat integration, which I stream on Kick, so it has that as well, which is another reason why I really enjoy it, because both of them have that integration. So again, you let me know. Now, I will mention that the GoPro is a bit of a hassle to live stream with, because with a phone, yes, it's a lot bigger, it's a lot more clumsy, it's a little bit more of a pain compared to a GoPro, but the main benefit is that it can have its own service. So since it can have its own service, well, you don't need a hotspot or a Wi-Fi source. With the GoPro, I do have to have my phone's hotspot on, which of course, you know, cell phone companies don't like to give you an unlimited hotspot with your unlimited plan. And then you have to pay more for data, and live streaming uses a lot. So again, it really depends on how much you want to live stream and what you really want to do. The GoPro mounting options, like I mentioned earlier, is amazing, but it uses a lot of data, especially if you want to stream 1080p. So just to give you a rough example, I streamed the other day tapping maple trees because I do maple syrup, and I used the GoPro on my head to show everything I was doing. And the GoPro ended up lasting perfectly fine for 2 days, and I got maybe, I would say 12 hours, 10 to 12 hours worth of live streaming out of the GoPro before I ran through my 20 gigabyte hotspot on my iPhone. Now, I will also mention that if you do go with the GoPro, there's nothing wrong with it, but if you do go with the GoPro, if you have an iPhone, you're gonna have issues with the hotspot shutting off on the iPhone. And it's really, really weird, and I have not figured out a solution for it. It seems like an Apple issue that they just haven't addressed. But again, that is just my experience. If you use the GoPro with an Apple hotspot, you gotta always keep resetting the live stream. But when it's working, it works great, but every now and then it'll keep shutting off. If you have an Android though, I haven't fully tested it, but also whenever I did test with a hotspot, I never had any problems with it, and it's worked really, really well and never cut out. So it's really, really weird. It seems like an Apple issue. So I just figured I would throw that out there. Again, the GoPro uses a hotspot when you're IRL streaming. So you're gonna need one of those, and you'll need a lot of data compared to a phone. Yes, it's a lot worse mounting options, but at least you can have an unlimited plan and it will be all right there. But anyways, that is the low light. And again, like I said, leave a comment down below in what you think looks better in your opinion. And let me know what you think it excels at, because some of these cameras might excel at low light compared to others, but that camera might be worse at full light compared to others as well. Again, you let me know down below.
So now that you got a look at each of the cameras with different environments and actions, let's go over some of the pros and cons. First up, the GoPro. Some of the pros for this camera include the better mounting options compared to the other two, allowing for a lot more versatility. It also has a very affordable price point compared to the other cameras. Last but not least, it allows you to stream 60 FPS, which lets you stream those high action activities you may partake in. As for the cons, there are a good amount. In order to live stream for long periods of time, you have to have it plugged directly into a power bank with the battery out of the camera. You can live stream with the battery in, but it will die very quickly, so it's best to have a spare battery bank that will always be charging the GoPro, but it is a bit of a hassle with the cable always coming from it. It also only has a camera in the front, meaning that if you want to go to selfie mode, you have to turn the camera full 180 and vice versa, which just isn't the best viewing experience. Now, this isn't anything major, but I do think it was important to note. On top of this, it also requires a hotspot, meaning your phone always has to be with it. Because it live streams off the phone, and the phone and GoPro have to both be connected to the same network, and live streaming uses a lot of data, so you lose your hotspot quick. You also cannot change field of view on the fly and have to shut the stream off and turn it back on each time you want to change, which for me, the GoPro Quick app was also really slow with starting up your live stream and took a while. Another con would have to be that you can't mute it either. So if you're using the GoPro and live streaming directly from it, you have to shut it off to mute it, which basically is just a pain. However, you can get around this by having an IRL setup, which if you're interested in creating one for yourself for free, I highly recommend checking out my IRL streaming tutorial found on my channel. The last con I will mention is the low light. The base GoPro seems to do really bad in low light compared to the other two, so much that you can't even see a glimpse of anything, even when it's not really that dark out. So all in all, the GoPro isn't that bad, but it really depends on what you're doing with it, as if you're doing something that is full of action and fast paced, this may work best due to easy mounting options along with 60 FPS live streams. Now onto the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra pros and cons. The first pro we are going to start out with is the camera in all lighting conditions. To me, the camera just seems to be a lot better quality compared to the other two in all situations we tried, so I am impressed with that. Along with this, the camera also seems to be a lot more vibrant and colorful rather than cool temperature, which is better for the viewer experience in my opinion. The next pro would be the fact that it has to be on a data plan so that you can have unlimited data and not have to worry about running out of it and your stream shutting off. I should also mention that from my experience, the cooling seems to be pretty good, at least better than the iPhone, and honestly too good during the cold weather. The final pro is that it has an app with multiple functions in it to control the stream while you are live, which is of course way better than the GoPro. However, it does have some cons. The first con is the price of $1,200, which is very expensive, but it makes sense considering it is not just a camera, but it is a very large investment if you only want one for streaming. Another con is that it is locked at 30 FPS, meaning that it just isn't as smooth as 60 FPS, so any high action or fast moving objects will be more blurred rather than really smooth. This isn't really anything major, but like I had mentioned, really depends on the type of content you are planning on streaming and what will benefit you the most. The next con would be that although there is an app, IRL Pro, which all the big streamers use, it is a little messy and all over in the UI, and it could be better, but that's not really a phone issue, more so an app issue. Moving on to the iPhone 13 Pro Max pros. The first one to talk about is 60 FPS. Compared to its competitor, the S23, the iPhone's ability to do 60 FPS is amazing for any high action footage. The iPhone also has a really good app called Moblin, which has a really great UI and lots of functionality and quality of life features, which makes it really nice and easy to use. The ultra wide view is better compared to the S23, but isn't quite as wide as the GoPro, but it is pretty close before you get that fisheye lens effect. Now onto the cons. First one to mention is again that price tag of $1,200 being a lot of money. Another one to mention would be that it is a lot cooler of a temperature and more bland compared to the S23. To me, the image quality just isn't as good as the S23 as well. A major one to mention is that getting alert sounds on the iPhone doesn't work either. And if you have an animated alert, it is limited to 4 or 5 FPS, which is terrible, and that is an Apple issue. So if you are out and about, you will not really know if anyone follows their subs unless you have a chat notification to tell you. And this has been one of the biggest downsides to the iPhone for all streamers, typically requiring you to have a second phone for alerts, which is just kind of defeating the purpose. Now, I didn't mention the microphone quality because I want to hear what you guys think of it down in the comments section below, along with what you think of the image quality compared to all of the cameras. Also, if you have any questions related to these that I did not cover in the video, please feel free to comment down below and I will answer those and keep those comment sections updated. So if there's any information I didn't cover here and somebody asked down below, I will be sure to keep that updated. Along with that, if you want to do this exact method that I use here to be able to live stream, as well as not having to worry about disconnects from wherever the heck you are in the world, I have a tutorial on that on my channel right here. Go ahead and take a look at that. It's a full tutorial on how to set up an IRL stream for free. Anyways, hopefully this helps you in your future live streaming endeavors, and I would really appreciate a sub and a like, as it really does help the channel. Thank you for watching.